Hello, everyone. So, as we open our media every morning, say social media, even the national media, everything we always see is always negative, unfortunately. And sadly, this channel too has become very negative over the last few years. And that's because the world too has become very negative. And society, Irish society as a whole, has become very hopeless, I would say. Not even negative, it was hopeless is the word I would use. Because every time we're becoming desensitized, and I said this about this before, that a lot of things that are happening, bad things that are happening in our society, people becoming very, desensitized to it. Take for example, every day of the week we're seeing horrible crimes committed against children in Ireland, in going up to courts and getting fully suspended sentences, getting off with like horrible stuff. The judges are letting them off, and people becoming desensitized to it. In any other society, there would be uproar. There would be uproar. But at this stage, there's so many cases of these. We're talking not just about one, we're talking about nearly probably 50 within a month. And that's how bad it is. That we're seeing that children under the ages of 10 are getting hard abuse at home by their stepfathers, by their fathers, by their mothers, etc. It's absolute horrific stuff. I couldn't even describe it to you. But what I'm trying to say is that people becoming desensitized to these things because there's so many every day of the week. I see one that's in the courts and they get off with 10 years doing horrific things, lifelong things that the child will never be able to get over. The psychological damage, etc., the physical damage too. In a lot of cases, there's no justice in that giving them 5 years or 10 years, and to be out in good behaviour maybe in three. It's absolutely insane. But the simple reality is, and even in society too, we see so many hopelessness, and particularly on our young people. There's so many young people struggling to make ends meet. There's so many young people, we see it every day, young people begging for help, begging for somebody to listen to them, somebody to help them in some small way, not for everything, but just to make a life, just even the basic stuff. They're not looking for a mansion or anything, they're just looking for some small room to rent or something, and they have to fight tooth and nail. And we see so much in this country of so many young people, as I say, but with different needs, etc. They can't get assessments, they can't get help, they can't get anything, and we see so many heartbreaking stories of people dying waiting for ambulances, hours and hours waiting for ambulances, people waiting, and dying in hospital trolleys, in hospitals and A&Es, etc. Like it's so desensitizing that so people don't pay attention to it anymore, and that's how the state wins because people are so they kind of shut themselves off from it, and rightly so because it is sad life to live that you always live in the negative, etc. But you have to face reality too, of course. You can't just live in delusion. And you have to see what's happening and you have to know what's happening in society around the world, even in our own backyards, etc. We have to know what is going on. But the simple reality is that it is driving a lot of people mad. It's driving a lot of people to despair, and it is. And the media too, because obviously if it's a good story and stuff like that, majority of the times people don't really care. And that's just the sad thing, because people have just come so desensitized to seeing hopeless, senseless acts of violence and acts of depravity, I would say, in some cases. It's just so sad to see this country, and especially so many young people, because every day you see a young person, a young child, etc. As I said about the courts, and I said with assessments, and I said about other stuff, like even just basic stuff, even some children with special needs, they can't get schools. They can't get schools, the basic thing. And they've been left out of society, they've been left out of meeting their friends, getting to meet children, etc. And getting socialising and getting, a good start in life, etc. Making friends, etc. And the state can't even provide that. And again, this was become so desensitized that there is no anger anymore. And what I mean by that is there is anger, of course, but a lot of people, are not barging down the doors to the politicians, if that makes any sense, because a lot of these things are just totally wrong. Like no society would ever put up with some of these stuff that's happening. Things will happen, of course, in society, but it's the fact of the matter is, it's every day. It's every day. It's every week. It's every minute. We're talking about literally not just once a week. We're talking about 70 times a week in some cases, around the whole length and breadth of this country, all 26 counties. And it's driving people mad. It's driving people to hopelessness. It's driving people to despair. And how we do that is, of course, we have to get rid of this fucking bastard government. But the second thing is, too, we have to be a lot more open with our feelings. Because a lot of people, too, hold back when they see these kinds of things. They're afraid to say anything about it. They're afraid to speak out against it. They're afraid to talk about what they see in front of them. And a lot of people, and I get it, I understand, sometimes I'm the same, that you don't want to think it's reality. And that's the simple thing, because it's just so much, and especially in our own personal lives too. people have a lot on their plate. Take for example, years ago, things were simpler. Life was simpler, work was simpler, things were simpler. When you went to work, you came home at the end of the day, you didn't have to worry about working to the next day. Nowadays, work is just 24 hours nearly at this stage. You come home after days of work, you have more work to do. And it's just, and then especially when you have children and stuff, things are just, and especially with social media, etc., it's just far too much on people nowadays. And again, worrying about other people too. Take for example, and I've often heard people worry about themselves, etc., but of course you should always put yourself first, because of course nobody else is going to worry about it. Unfortunately, that's just the state we live in. But the simple reality is that everybody's experiencing something. That's just the thing. And a lot of people just feel hopeless. That's as simple as that. We see this with our young people, that so many people feel hopeless too. Just in general in life, things are just so bad for young people particularly. It's just sad. It's really, really sad to see. But as I say to people, never lose hope, because it's only through action that we can achieve hope. And I suppose my main point is here, when you see something bad online, etc., of course, speak out against it. Because staying silence solves nothing. Silence doesn't solve anything. Being silent achieves nothing, basically. It lets the state off with it, lets the institutions off with it. But if you speak out, and of course, speak your mind, speak your feelings, regardless of your job, fuck your job, your money, etc. Don't worry about that. When you're dead and gone, it'll be no good to you. And I see so much that people are too afraid because they could lose their job by saying something, etc. Don't worry about that. You always get another job. There's always another job. There's always another paycheck. But it's always about speaking up for what's right. And I think that's the end of the day. The part of righteousness, I would say, more than the part of hopelessness and despair. To be the part of righteousness, to do the part of righteousness, to do the right thing. And that is always to speak up against these things, because we can't let it continue. It's simple as that. We can't let it continue, so our children will have to put up what we are putting up with. And this needs to be action in this country. It really, really does. But do let me know what you think. As I say, I could go on about more stuff, but it's just the sense of, it's I'm sure people get what I'm saying, but we open our phones every day, we see just hopeless stuff that's happening around the world, in Ireland, etc. Terrible stuff, and I've only touched on a few things, I could touch on more. But it's absolute terrible stuff that we see on social media nowadays and stuff, and different things in the news and in the local media, etc. It's terrible, terrible, terrible stuff. But the only way to solve anything, the only way to achieve action, because action achieves hope, is to speak out, is to do the right thing and to call out stuff when you see it. Especially when you see government abuse of the systems, etc. Especially when we're just talking about children's places in schools, etc. And take for example assessments, etc. That's all the state's responsibility to look after. And it's up to the Irish people, because the Irish people are the governor of the state. The state is not over the Irish people are over the state. We are the governor of the state. What I mean by that is, we own the state. They don't own the state. They have a mandate for a few years to look after the state on behalf of the Irish people. The Irish people are the sovereignty. That's the simple as that. And it's only by the sovereignty speaking out, because the state relies on people to be too afraid, etc., to say anything. To achieve fear, that's what it is, and it has to achieve fear. And hopelessness too, because when you're hopeless, you don't have the energy to speak out, to fight, to stand up for what is righteous. You don't, and that's the idea of the state too, is to bully people down to shut up. Anyway, do let me know what you take. Subscribe, and bye.